I wanted to take some food with me because I was concerned about how the food would be there and so forth. So I had always remembered, and in fact I had sent salamis from Katz's to my father for a 70th birthday party, sent it down to Boca Raton in Florida. My daughter's boyfriend was in Iraq last year, and I sent him a salami from Katz's. So I, called up and wrote and said, gee, I'd like to bring some salamis, can I do it? And there was no reason why I couldn't, so I brought a couple of salamis over to Tibet and Mongolia. And it was quite a trip. It was very interesting. We flew into Beijing, and then from Beijing went into Ulaanbaatar, and then went into the mountains, into the Gur camps, and stayed at several different Gur camps. In one Gur camp, I remember very fondly, one night we stayed up late, and one of my companions had an iPod, and we hooked it up to the dining room speaker system in the Gur camp out in the mountains. And we playing the music, we were playing old Beatles tunes, and I went running back to my Gur, and I ripped through my duffel bag and found my salami from Katz's and a bottle of tequila I had brought with me. So I went running across the field, and we went into the dining room. I went into the dining room, and I motioned for the Mongol, because I don't speak Mongol and he didn't speak English, but they knew what I was talking about, and so they got a knife, and they were cutting up the salami, and we were toasting each other with tequila, and then a little later on with some Mongolian vodka. But in the meantime, they were very much enjoying the Katz's salami, the kosher salami from New York. It was very good. I actually have brought over some mustard with me too, which they hadn't had, and they were. It was about 15 Mongols and about 4 Americans, and we just had a party until about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the salami was gone, no more left, and nor was the vodka or tequila. And we went outside and just looked up at the stars, and it was just a very wonderful experience. And then we went, traveled around some more in Mongolia, and then I actually brought 2 salamis. Brought one for one leg of the trip, which was Mongolia, and the other was for the Tibet. The monks were very philosophical. They kind of curious about what I was doing. They didn't. I'm not sure that they really understood exactly what I was holding or where it was from. I certainly couldn't speak with them. One of them was actually a monk who we referred to as our monk, because he traveled with us for several days and went from place to place. And we, in fact, one day we stopped for lunch on the way down to Korum in Mongolia, and stopped along the river. And that's when I first took the salami out for this monk, and took pictures of the monk and myself. And then we had boxed lunches which weren't very good, and I said, well, wait a minute, I've got a solution for this, and happened to have the salami that day in my backpack, and took out the salami, and there was a doctor from New York, a teacher from Connecticut, a couple from Los Angeles, a young lady from Chicago, and we started cutting up the Katz's salami. They were in the middle of Mongolia along the river, and had a lunch for ourselves, because we did not have much food that we enjoyed anyway that afternoon, and it was quite a treat for us. Izzy, my grandfather, was born in 1885 in eastern Poland, and he eventually emigrated to London, got a job as a tailor, and made enough money to buy his way to America, and had to go to Antwerp, and took a boat over into New York, and arrived in April of 1904 at Ellis Island, where of course they promptly changed his name to Isidore. And Izzy got off the boat and lived in the Lower East Side in 1904 for several years, then moved across the river to Newark, New Jersey. My father was born in Newark in 1928. Izzy, of course, having been in the Lower East Side, knew of Katz's and went to Katz's very often. My father reminds me that when he was a little boy, they would pack up the family on the weekends for Saturday or Sunday to go to New York City. And this was before the tunnels were built, and they would take the ferry across the river to New York City, and again, go Lower East Side and go to Katz's and the pickle market and the fish market and the candy store around the corner. I, of course, grew up in New Jersey, and it became a tradition for my father to bring me and our family to Katz's and have dinner or lunch. And I remember he showed me how to buy a sandwich. You get your ticket when you go to Katz's, and you would fold $1 or $2 in your hand, and you would hand the ticket to the butcher across the counter with the $1 or $2, and that was their tip. And they would bring out a pastrami if you wanted pastrami, and cut the salami and give you a taste and ask you if you like that one. And maybe it was a little too fatty, and you say, no, I'd like something a little bit more lean. By the time you got done getting your sandwich, you'd have already eaten almost a half a pound of meat. Well, now I live in Washington, D.C., and don't come up here often enough to New York City, but when we do and we bring the children, I have now brought my children, who are 4 children, 20, 15, 7, and 4, and have all brought them to Katz's, and in fact have showed them the trick of the ticket, buying the sandwich and getting the extra meat before the sandwich, the taste. And it's always been a real treat for us. We get the potato knish and pastrami sandwich, or my wife particularly likes the corned beef, and we make an afternoon of it, and then we walk around the Lower East Side, what's left of it now. But the candy store is still there that I went to and my father went to, and we have a quite an interesting time. As a matter of tradition, my children, in fact, my oldest daughter, has done it as well. You still fold $1 or $2, and you give it to the gentleman across the counter with your ticket, and you know what you're getting, they know what they're going to give you, and you sit there and you taste the pastrami or the corned beef and make sure that it's lean enough or tasty enough, and that's the piece of meat that you want on your sandwich, that they slice and then pile high so that you can't eat it all on your fresh rye bread at Katz's. It's, everybody seems to know it, and you pass it down, and you just do it, and it's expected. And you get your meat, and you get your taste, your little taste, and you get your pile high sandwich, and that's what you have: your fresh half sour pickles, and your pickled tomatoes, and your Dr. soda, and your spicy mustard, and your potato knish, and you're in heaven. You're absolutely in heaven. Being in Tibet or being in Mongolia and being across the world and not eating very good food. I mean, yak is okay, but it's a little sinewy. But you take out that Katz's salami and you have a drink, and you slice it up and you pass it around. You're on top of the world over there, literally and figuratively, when you're eating the salami. It's just wonderful.
Of course, tequila and the Beatles.
The tequila and the Beatles doesn't hurt.
Nice props.
And the Mongolian vodka, let's not forget that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the taste very much, but it's wonderful.
It's how they designed it. They put something in it so you forget the taste.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. Good. You've always, Italian, Jewish, you have full tables of food. A family gets together, and you always have, you can never have too much food. And frankly, that's how my parents brought me up. You have family over or guests over, you bring food to the table, and you have food. In fact, in my office, when we have meetings, traditionally, I will always have food on the table, either cookies or if it's in the morning, it's bagels and cream cheese. Going to Katz's is like being at home. Going to Katz's is you get the abundance of food. I don't mind paying for it. It's like being at home, and you having the pickles piled up, and the French fries, and the corned beef, and the rare roast beef. And is it rare enough? No, let me taste another piece. And then going over to the end of the counter and having the gentleman cut you up some meat to bring home for you. my parents live down in Florida now, and they have several times come up to the city, and they will tell me stories about how the smells of Katz's have permeated through the airplane, and everybody's wanting to have some because they're bringing food down to Florida with them, down to their home. But it's tradition to have an abundance of food, and as long as it's eaten, and I've never seen a plate that's not empty at Katz's. As long as the food is eaten, there's nothing wrong with that.